Om Shri Swaminarayanaya Namo Namaha. Shri Sajanand Swami Maharaj Nijay. Shri Ghansham Maharaj Nijay. Shri Hari Krishna Maharaj Nijay. Shri Sadguru Dev Ki Jai. Welcome to SwaminarayanSpirituality.com. Today is the 24th of June 2023. By the grace of Bhagwan Shri Swaminarayan, all the great gurus, all the great incarnations of God, we're continuing our contemplation on Vachanamrut, Garada Pratham number 1, and the question asked, as per last time, about the nature of Maya. What is Maya? How to understand Maya? So before we begin, I'd like to offer my prostrations and pranams and asking for blessings from all great sages, all devotees, all bhaktas, and from Bhagwan Hari Krishna Maharaj. So with that prarthana, we are continuing our exploration of Vachanamrutam, and I'm going to go further today in terms of the some of the footnotes written in the BAPS app, BAPS app. For those of you who may not be familiar with this, it is a free app, very nicely done. In the App Store. You can find it there. It is in English and in Gujarati. It goes both ways. And there's other apps on Vachanamrut also by other organizations. They're also very good. You can find a lot of good information there. And you can always send me questions if you have any specific points you'd like to make or any specific further elaborations. So from last time, we were talking about this word dhyan. Remember, the question is asked by Govardhan Bhai about Maya. What is Maya? And he's asking a very practical, very potent question about how to understand Maya. Bhagwan ni Maya. He says that Maya is of God's Maya. So he's clear about this point that Maya is of God. God's power. It is Bhagvat Ichha. Bhagwan ni Maya. What is its form? How can we understand? So we have been going into this last several recordings, and last time we talked about this word dhyan that Shriji Maharaj used. See, I'll read the whole sentence and then we'll go from there. I'll read it in Gujarati and then we'll go into it carefully, step by step, in English and take it from there. So in Gujarati, the reply to the question, which is, the question is, Jene Bhagwan ni Maya kahe che, tenu roop shu che. Pachi Shriji Maharaj bola je, Bhagwan no bhakta hoy, tene Bhagwan ni murti nu dhyan karta je padarth adu avine avran kare. Tene Maya kahiye. What does it mean? What is the answer? The answer is that when you are sitting for dhyan of the murti, Bhagvat Murti, we're sitting for contemplation, manan, chintan, and concentration. You're sitting for dhyan, and then there's all kinds of obstruction from within that can come about, and from externally also. That obstructs, that is called avran. That is the obstruction, that is the cover that prevents us from keeping the focus on God. That is called Maya. That is the basic answer, right? Now, to go further more in depth in this, last time we talked about the footnote, several footnotes that are in the BAPS app, where it says in there, Bhakti Margma Dhyan Etle Bhagwan ni Murti nu Ekagrata Purvak Chintan. It is a very, very powerful footnote that is written there. It's a very nice definition of dhyan, because the path shown by Shriji Maharaj is of devotion. It is a path of bhakti, where Jnana, Vairagya, and Dharma are supports. So they are supporting bhakti, but never to damage bhakti, never to move away from upasana, never to stop upasana. Even in the Brahmic state, the upasana continues. This is one of the fundamental ideas, that Parabrahma, Paramatma, the Murti he's talking about, nobody becomes that Murti. Nobody is equal to that Murti. At the most, you get to Brahmasthiti. You are Akshara Mukta. You are, one with Akshara Brahma. You are, like in Vachanamrut Pratham 21, Aksharna Sadharma Padane Pamya. That statement is there. You have become like Akshar Brahma. Another statement is like this, Bhagwan na Sadharma Padane. There are some organizations like SMVS, Swaminarayan Vachana Sanstha, that does talk about the liberated souls, muktas, that are within the murti of Bhagavan Purushottam. It could be like that, as per Shikshapatri Shlok 111, and from my perspective at least, it is possible that Bhagavan can absorb the mukta inside and is alone. The Shlok 111 says, due to extreme devotion, Ati Sneha Karine, Radhika Ji Krishnana Angma Leen Thai Jai. That's what Bhagwan Swaminarayan has written that point. He had written that fantastic Shlok number 111. So we could look at it from that point of view. And there are other more intricate tattvic distinctions that some organizations make about this point. that can a liberated being get lost inside the murti, doesn't become the murti, but is one with the murti. So it's a kind of, there's a Advaitic bhav, non-dual bhav, but it is at the same time, nobody becomes the murti. No, I don't think, as far as I know, there is no organization out of the 82 different organizations, separate organizations that are present today in the Swaminarayan Sampradaya, and they're growing every year. These 82 organizations, they, as far as I know, not a single one of them claims that anybody becomes that murti. You may lose yourself in that, but you don't become God. God meaning Bhagavan Purushottam Narayan, that which is existing beyond Akshara Brahma. This is one of the central teachings in Vachanamrut. Even Maharaja said that, when you are in connection with Bhagavan, the great saints can be considered God-like. They're holding God, Bhagavan na dharak, but they are not God. God is only God, unparalleled, one entity with form. There's actually a form like a human form, but not this material form. It is a divine divya vigraha. So that murti he's talking about there, that is residing as within the Akshardham as Akshardhami. So there's three words here: Akshardhami, Akshardham, Aksharamukta. They're all within Akshar. So the Akshardham is the residence of the Muktas. It is also called Brahma Mohol. It is also called, there's a lot of other names for it, but we can think of it this way. Mohol means like a house, but it's not like a house in that sense. More like a palace. Brahma Mohol, the palace of Brahma. It's just like a comparative word that is used. That's all. Right? So it is beyond anybody's description. There is no influence of Maya there. The influence of Mahamaya stops in Jnana Pralaya. Once you cross Mahamaya and enter into the Akshara Brahma, into Nirakar Akshara Brahma, Mahamaya is crossed. But Nirakar Akshara Brahma is one of the forms of Akshara Brahma. The other form is Sakar, which is a new idea. In many ways, it's brand new in Vedanta. And then the Muktas that are like Akshara Brahma. So those are more philosophical things. We'll get to all that in more detail as we move along. But here in today's contemplation, this is a very significant point made by the commentators in the BAPS app, that in the path of bhakti, in the marg means path. The path of bhakti is such that there is meditation, dhyan in the path. This is the first point. So if you are, bhakti would imply one is a bhakta. If you are a bhakta, bhakta means one is a devotee. One is taking the shelter of God. He's at the feet of God, is in the presence of God, is humble before God. And this is a general idea in any theistic religion, whether it is the Abrahamic religions or the Bhakti Sampradayas in India or wherever it may be. This is Vachanamrutam, and its basic concepts are applicable everywhere. But the question is about, its depths, which is what we are trying to cover here carefully, slowly, patiently. So here, Maharaj is talking about Bhakti Marg. Because he's propagating Bhakti Marg. He's the propagator of something called Ekantika Dharma. And I'm actually working on a very big book on this. It'll maybe 400 to 500 pages long by the time it is done. It is on Ekantika Dharma. Ekantika Dharma is Dharma, Jnana, Vairagya, and Bhakti. When you combine these four together, this is called Ekantik Dharma. Sometimes it is called Bhagavad Dharma. And Shriji Maharaj, his life, if you look at his charitra, is about propagating these principles. And this combination of these four qualities, these four sadgun, these four sadhanas also. Right, so here the question of dhyan comes about. That in the path of bhakti, what is dhyan? Dhyan, in Gujarati, the commentators have written, dhyan etle Bhagwanni murtinu ekagrata purvak chintan. It's a tremendous statement. Ekagrata purvak means that you are completely single pointed on the murti. Now the question becomes, murti means who? Murti means what? In a general sense, you can just say incarnations of God in a general sense, whichever one you like, in a very generic sense. Is that what Shriji Maharaj means? Well, you could interpret that way. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that you select an Ishta Devata. And this is the good thing about Vachanamrut, it's universal. So, Swaminarayan devotees are, of course, worshipping Bhagwan Swaminarayan, Sajanand Swami. But the Vachanamrut is for everybody. It's not just for the people in the Swaminarayan Sampradaya. Its spirituality is for everyone. So let's take, for example, a Shiv Bhakta. Shankar Ji ka Bhakta, in Hindi we might say. Well, how would you apply this statement, for a Shiv devotee? It's very easily applicable, beautifully applicable. You have an image, a murti, beautiful murti, maybe like a yogic murti of Bhagwan Shankara. They're available, certainly. Many pictures are there too. Shiv Ling is also there. That is more like that is also murti, but that is not the form of the Shiva. That is actually the lingam, So that is another way to worship Shiva. But you can actually take a murti. So in some Hindu temples there are some beautiful murtis of Bhagwan Shankar that are so fantastic. I've seen many. I've had darshan of many of them over the years. So I'm just giving this as an example how you can apply this sentence in a much broader sense rather than just the people in the sampradaya. So the point here is that the chintan of the murti, that means first you have to have darshan. That means you see the murti with your eyes. Then it's seeing the murti with your eyes, then with your mind, with the glory within. Then the mantra is done. So there's a whole lot of steps of this type. So for this chintan, when this word chintan is used, that means that you are connecting through your mental capacity, through mantras, through bhajans, and you are contemplating the glory, the mahima internally. And you are doing darshan of the outside murti, then becomes inside, which becomes inside. So when there is written Bhagwan ni murti nu ekagrata purvak chintan, ekagrata purvak means with the completeness of the single pointedness of absorption in the murti, that your mind is completely there, not anywhere else. Of course, for that to happen, it requires extraordinary glory, mahima. So we've talked about this before. Let's look at some examples. For example, parents and children. Children are available. Children are there. When children are young, particularly, parents are keeping their constant attention on them. You don't even have to try. Your attention is automatically there because you know that they could be hurt. They have to be protected. They have to be fed properly. They have to be raised properly. So many million things are there. So it automatically is there. So there are two ways to think about chintan. One is like a forced chintan, that you're forcing yourself. That's not a good way. That doesn't work very well. Although that may be necessary at times, but it's not advisable to do it that way. It's better to have mahima. That's why Gunaditanand Swami said mahima. In Swamini Vatu, it begins with that. This word mahima. Very, very important, because if you have the internal glory of God, as it is said even in Christianity, the internal glory of God is everything. The glory, mahatmya, the glory that is there, then you cannot forget. You will not forget Bhagavan for a second, because you know His glory. You know that God is in a general sense, you know that God is the whole and soul. That is the basic idea. Bhagavan is the whole and soul. Now he's talking about murti nu chintan. So you can take a murti of Bhagwan Shiv, Bhagwan Krishna, Bhagwan Swaminarayan, in particular, whoever avatar guru you want, and that gives a very nice support. Avlamban in one sense, but it's not just an avlamban, it's not just a support. It is to surrender the mind at the feet of God, to be a surrendered soul. In Gujarati we say Bhagwan ne samarpit, Bhagvat samarpit atma. That is called a surrendered soul. You see, so if we are wanting to see God, or for God to come to us, not that we can reach God by our efforts, because assuming that God is existing independently of us in many ways, although we are not existing independently, He is existing independently. If that's the case, the only way we can see God is by revelation, is by God revealing Himself to us. So that is the difference between grace-based salvation and performance-based salvation. This is a point in Christianity which actually is very much applicable in the Vachanamrutam. You'll be surprised to know how much overlap there is between Christian principles and Vachanamrutam. Tremendous amount. Almost 99% there is overlap. Meaning everything that is in Christianity is actually in Vachanamrut. Believe it or not, I can prove that to you also. But what is in Vachanamrut is also quite a bit of further extension of things that are not written in the New Testament or other scriptures. Because it goes up to a certain point, and then it kind of, then Vachanamrut takes it up from there. I'm not trying to say one is better or bigger or anything like that, but that's just a comparative thing to look at. My point is, right now, all I'm trying to say is that grace-based salvation, meaning what? Krupa. Krupa is the word. Bhagavad Krupa. That only by the grace of God one is released from Maya. Only by the grace of God can God be revealed. Even Gunatitanand Swami has said that. He says, Bhagwan thakich Bhagwan olkhai. To recognize God, it is through grace of God. So this type of chintan, ekagrata purvak chintan of the murti. Here murti refers to several things now. Now that's the generic background understanding. But murti here, Maharaj, if you look at the entire Vachanamrutam, in so many ways he's referring to the God that exists within him. This is one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is that he is the manifestation in human form of that same Murti, which himself has stated in several places in Vachanamrut. Right? So in Madhya 13, which is almost every devotee in Swaminarayan knows about that Murti that is beyond Akshara Brahma, within that divine light and beyond that divine light, there's a form there. That form is God. And that Parabrahma, Paramatma, comes in human form, and that is Swami Sajanand Maharaj. This is the basic idea in the Sampradaya. But not everybody accepts that. Not everybody understands that. It's a difficult thing to understand. So that's okay. It will happen in time if it is going to happen. That is a much more advanced thing to understand the identity, the spiritual identity of Shriji Maharaj. But here, the general concept is that ekagrata purvak chintan, which means a fully focused, fully concentrated, one drop after another. It's the flow of oil from one container to another. It is akhanda vritti. This is one step below akhanda vritti. This is what leads to akhanda vritti. Akhanda vritti is continuous contemplation. So ekagrata purvak chintan is dhyan in bhakti, meaning bhakti, upasana, etc. And so that ekagrata purvak, we want to reach that state of chintan without any kind of internal friction or resistance. The commentators in the BAPS app stated also in the very first line of their commentary, they have stated, in Gujarati they said, ahi dhyan etle je vastu ni dharana karvama ave. Vastu, now he's talking about, vastu means object, but in this case it is the murti, it is the Bhagavan himself, that you're doing dharana, you're trying to hold. Tej vastuma prayatna vina. See, this is so powerful. Without effort, effortless. With a prayatna vinaj vrittyoni ekakarta. What a beautiful sentence. This is everything. But this is just absolutely tremendous how they have written. My prostrations to them again. So this is the thing to understand here. That you are holding as a sadhak, as a bhakta, you're doing dharana. You're holding the murti with glory, with mahima, right? And you don't have to even try to do it anymore. So but that state comes, dharana turns into dhyan. See, it is dharana, dhyan, and then samadhi. The last three angas, the last three limbs in the Eightfold Yoga, right? So Maharaj is directly talking about the seventh limb, where there is zero resistance in the love. The loving connection with Bhagavan. That is the point here. Now, how is this done? If you look at the lives of the sages, lives of the devotees in the Sampradaya, outside the Sampradaya, you will find that so many have done this. And those who are more connected with Bhagavan, this is what they do. They don't waste time in other things. They're interested in this. If we want to reach what is called in Gujarati, Chati Dehe Ekantik Sthiti, Brahmi Sthiti, in Gujarati. While living in this body, we want to realize God. We want God to come to us. We want to be in that free space, completely Brahmic state. That it's called Brahmi Sthiti. And this language is used in the Gita, chapter 2, the last verse. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. So that Sthiti means state of realization, state of being, state of living. So when we're in that state, completely in that state, we are in a state of dhyan. We have already crossed dhyan. So that is samadhi. Although Patanjali talked about the samadhi here in terms of nirvikalpa samadhi, Shriji Maharaj's description, he doesn't deny the existence of nirvikalpa samadhi. In fact, he placed so many people in that. But Maharaj's more emphasis is not on that nirvikalpa samadhi. It is on Jnana Samadhi. It is on the complete stability of the mind, body, senses in the Murti of God while living in the body and doing the activities of this world. Shriji Maharaj in Vartal 20 has placed more emphasis and has shown that is much greater than Nirvikalpa Samadhi also. We'll get to that in the future. I have made some recordings on this before on Vartal 20. They are available. Very, very powerful. He's given the example of Janak Raja. So it should be understood here that the question is asked by a householder devotee. But the answer, it seems like, Maharaj is saying you sit for dhyan, for meditation, go into samadhi. And then, that is nirvikalpa samadhi. That is a path also. It is a yogic path. But even if you go into that samadhi, so what? That doesn't mean that much actually. And that's what's interesting about Vachanamrut. Vachanamrut kind of considers that even like an obstacle. Although Maharaj didn't exactly use that language, he's not in favor of that nirvikalpa samadhi. He is saying that you have to learn the art of living in this world, like Janak Raja. Go back to Vartal 20. Go back to lots of places in Vachanamrut. Garada Pratham number 2 also. Uttam Kakshanu Vairagya. You find that the significance, the importance is placed on living in this world and having Jnana Samadhi. And that Jnana Samadhi is being connected with Bhagavad Murti, that you're connected with the Lord again and again. And you're doing your activity. But once you have freed yourself from the worldly activity and offered it as a karma yoga, you dive back into the Murti of God. Bhagwan ni Murti ma dubi jau in Gujarati. This is the point. That is what pure bhaktas do. They get lost inside the Murti of God. And they continue, and they come out of the Murti, but they don't really come out. They are physically performing their actions as seva, by the will of God. Now that's the other point. Every action performed by an ekantik bhakta who has reached the Brahmic state, who has reached dharana, dhyan, and Jnana Samadhi. Let's call it Jnana Samadhi. Let's call it the Samadhi of the Swarup. Of samadhi, of being absorbed in the Swarup of Bhagavan. That kind of samadhi, that kind of stability and great joy, it is through that seva is done. Bhakti sevas, mukti sevas chigamita. That mukti, you are a liberated being, and in that liberated state, there is seva done. How beautiful, Tatra brahmatmana Krishna seva muktischa gammitam. That is Shikshapatri. See, Tatra Brahmatmana Krishna Seva Muktischa Gamyatam. How fantastic, how tremendous. You see, so there is such a great joy in living with God, offering everything at his feet, saying that whatever Sachin does, whatever a bhakta does, whatever a devotee, whatever we are doing, we just offer it at the feet of God, and whatever is yet to come in this body's life or in this jivatma's life through this body is by the will of God. Then there's no issue of any karma, prarabdha karma, sanchit karma, nothing. The will of God is my destiny, not any karmas, not anything. Which is greater, karma or the one who is giving the fruit of the karma? Of course, we get the fruits, but if we're connected towards Bhagavan, what do we want from God? So the principle in Vachanamrutam is to want from God only God. Is to want Bhagavan from Bhagavan. Not to want something else from Bhagavan. This is the principle in Vachanamrut. Very difficult. I mentioned it last time about Nishkam Bhakti. It doesn't happen in most cases. If it happens, well and good. You are at the very high topmost stage. If we are not there, don't worry. Whatever you need, whatever you want, ask everything from Bhagavan. Ask him everything. Don't hold back, so that you get it out of your system, once and for all. Don't hold anything back. Whatever you want, you ask him, so that it gets out of your system. That is the most important thing. And once you have asked for it and you continue your sadhana, leave it to him to give it to you if he wants to. If he gives it to you, well and good. If he doesn't give it to you, well and good. Then don't carry. Do your efforts, whatever you need to do in life. Continue satsang, continue bhajan, bhakti, kirtan, and eventually a point will come as bhajan, bhakti, manan, chintan, as dhyan, as this kind of chintan, ekagrata purvak chintan, murtinu ekagrata purvak chintan, as this continues, that sakam bhakti will move into nishkam bhakti, because you begin to enjoy the rasa of Bhagavan. You don't want anything else. That rasa, just prasannata, that bhakti ras keeps coming. And then the whatever is needed for life in its own way, it comes automatically. You don't have to ask for that. And if your intention, if we have desires to help a lot of people, we want to build organizations, we want to do those things as a seva, like many gurus do, even in Swaminarayan Sampradaya, then they pray for that. They say that not for themselves. They say that we want to affect millions of people. We want to build lots of temples. We want to have so many saints. We want to have so many devotees. We want to have for the benefit of others. They're not living for themselves. That is also possible. But again, those kinds of sankalpa, there's some controversy about this. They can come about by the devotee's will, by the saint's will, by the will of the individual, or they may occur by the divine will, by the will of Bhagavan. In either case, God fulfills them. The only difference is this, that if those desires are coming from the devotee's will, even though the devotee is at a very high stage, not asking anything for himself, but the desire is there to help lots of people, to build organizations, to have other individuals reach God, and all that kind of stuff. Similar to like Mahayana Buddhism, similar to that idea. If you have that, that is called Mahakaran Sharir. Technically, that is the vasanas of the muktas. So that is something interesting also. But those things, we don't have to worry about all that. That is a little further ahead once we reach that stage. You see, like if you want to see how all the universes are created and things like that, then Bhagavan will make you that kind of a being, Ishwar Koti. He put you in one of the Ishwaras so you can see how that is done. And you can do it yourself if you want, So all that kind of interesting metaphysical stuff is also discussed in Vachanamrutam. Anyway, here, today we're talking about Dhyan and the Ekagrata Purvak Chintan. What a fantastic word. Ekagrata Purvak. How do we reach that stage of that continuous single-pointed contemplation? Chintan is contemplation, to contemplate, to think again, to remember again and again, to cross-connect ideas, to be absorbed inside. Because, for example, if you cash in a $100 billion check, the example which I always like to give, you're not going to forget that for a second. You are making $40,000 a year. Now you have $100 billion in your bank account. You'll not be able to sleep even at nighttime. You'll by thinking, my God, my God, my God, my God, my God, my God. You'll just be like awed, assuming you don't get a heart attack. It's like that. So one has to know how to digest that. This is called prapti. Kaun mil gaya hai? Who is in front of me? This is another point about the Murti. The Paramahansas of Maharaj, and this is more from a Sampradaya point of view, the Paramahansas of Maharaj, considered him as God. And as a result of that, they couldn't forget him for a second. They followed everything he had to say. He put them through tremendous tests. 114 prakaran they're called. There's a whole list of them actually. Maybe sometime we'll go through them. They are so amazing. The most difficult situations he put them through. Very strict rules to follow. But nonetheless, they couldn't forget him for a moment. Now, if you look at a scripture like Vedras, you find out the state of realization that Maharaj wants to take those Paramahansas into. That is his antarik rahasya. So all that kind of stuff is there. It is so fantastic. Simply because Maharaj is from the Sampraday's point of view, from the devotee's point of view, is this Murti, the human manifestation sitting in front of them. But the question is, can you recognize who that is? It's like if you have that $100 billion person wearing t-shirts and a short, walking in a homeless neighborhood somewhere, with a long beard and hasn't bathed for 3 days. You see that person looks just like a destitute homeless person, wearing torn clothes. He comes to you deliberately like that because he wants to blend in with the people. But he has $100 billion, 100 billion, not million, let's say. But he's living in the homeless shelters, doing everything because he wants to interact with the people, so that he can connect with them, that they can connect with him. And then if he wants, he can take thousands of people and get rid of all of their poverty right away. Similarly, Bhagavan comes in the garb of a human being. And this is one of the biggest ideas in Vachanamrut, that Bhagavan and Bhagavan ke Sant, they come in the garb of human being. God and the great liberated beings, they come in human form, in masquerading as human beings. You see, taking birth and living like us and living with us and all that. But they are completely different. See, Shriji Maharaj has said, you realize the manifestation of God from a tattva point of view. Tattvati olakhu. So this is the point. The whole game is to recognize who he is. That's it. And if you recognize who he is, my God, then God is everywhere. It's like this, that $100 billion person goes into the homeless shelter, but somebody recognizes, oh my God, this is the $100 billion person. Now he recognizes him, and if he connects with him properly, then that's it. The end of story. He can make you a millionaire overnight, even a billionaire if he wants. I mean, he can give you all kinds of things. I mean, amazing things that can happen with a snap of a finger. You see? So that is called krupa. I'm drawing an analogy here. Bhagwan ki krupa. Bhagwan is ready to give everything. Only can we recognize him, and do we want what he wants to give? What he wants to give is freedom from Maya. Nobody wants that, so why she should give that? If a $100 billion per person comes to us and says, I'm giving you $1 million out of 100 billion, but the individual says, no, I want to stay in this shelter and be a homeless person, all that. He says, okay, you cannot force anybody to take it. So Shriji Maharaj himself put people in samadhi. Most of those people who came out of samadhi got stuck in this worldly life. Very few actually became satsangis or devotees or anything like that. That is what the records show. The history shows that. Meaning, even how unbelievable it's like massively getting attached to all the poverty. It is the attachment to the poverty. Even if the billionaire wants to give you $1 million, you say no, I don't want it. Then what is the point? Then if you don't want it, then you stay as you are. This is the whole idea, that the manifestation of Parabrahma Paramatma in the form of Sajanand Swami, and I'm speaking now from Sampradaya point of view, in the form of Sajanand Swami, when Maharaj is available, Maharaj is there. He's available, he's there. But what does he want to give, and what do we want to take? He wants to give Akshardham. He wants to give Mukti. He wants to give you that divine body called Brahmamaya Shari that comes in the next question, actually. Do we want that? Do we even know what that is? See, this is why we do satsang. If a billionaire gives $1 million to a 2-year-old child, he doesn't know what it is. He gives him a check of $1 million. He has no concept of this. Is something like this, We cannot even imagine what Vachanamrut wants to give us. And I'm staying focused on Vachanamrut. I'll give some other references. But what Shriji Maharaj wants to give is not something that even we understand, nor are we able to understand that. So he wants to give us that tremendous state beyond Maya. But we have to recognize what that murti is. And then if you have obtained it, you have to know what to do with it. If you have a check, $1 million check given by a billionaire, you have to know how to open a bank account and deposit it and what to do with that. Then it will be useful. Otherwise, it's just a piece of paper. You take it and roll it up and put it inside a closet somewhere, put it inside a drawer. It means nothing. It's like that. That's why all of this sadhana of dharana, dhyan, manan, chintan, mahima, seva, all of these sadhanas, why they're there? They are there so that we can experience the rasa, the glory of the murti. That's why. So that we come close to Bhagavan, and by krupa, by grace, the revelation occurs. He gives you his own form. He makes you into a mukta. And then that is the power of adhyatmic path. Bhakti Marg, as we have been saying. Once you go into this path, you begin to experience more and more and more and more. more and more amazing things are experienced. And as a result of that, the freedom from Maya is obtained, which is the freedom from poverty. The poverty of birth and death and the bondages, the terrible things that happened by getting stuck inside the sansar. All right, so these are some contemplative thoughts for today. Just whatever came to my mind by the will of Maharaj, it was spoken here. There's a lot more to be spoken. I just kind of freelanced, spoke this not without any thinking about much of anything. As thoughts just came, it was spoken here for my own manan chintan, and whatever is the will of Bhagavan. If it helps anybody, Bhagavad Ichha. All right, so with that, I want to offer my Anantakoti Namaskara to all the great sages, all the great devotees, all the bhaktas, all the sadhakas, mumukshus, everybody, and to Bhagavan Shri Swaminarayan, all the incarnations of God. Right? And with that, prarthana, we will continue this next time. Thank you so much.